Hello, visual merchandisers. Let's talk about a Chapter 8 review. Chapter 8, we're finally starting to do some stuff. We're talking about principles of design. You have the introduction. I think it's the second paragraph down in the introduction. It talks about good design should not be confused with taste, which involves personal choice or preference. Here it goes. The merit of any design is judged on a set of principles that includes balance, emphasis, proportion, rhythm, and harmony. Taste is not part of the equation. And that's what I try to do here. When I'm evaluating these, whether I like it or not, of course I like that wow factor. People have shared a classroom with me before. I always look for that wow factor. But I also look for the technical side of it. Is it balanced? Does it rhythm? Is there rhythm? Is it harmony? So I look for that. But we talk about balance. Describes the equity of weight, something distributed evenly on two sides. And figure 8-1 is the perfect example, because you can split that right down the middle and you'll have exactly the same on one side as you do the other side. In order to give equal importance to objects in the display, they should be placed with care on either side of an imaginary line that splits your display in half. Again, you'll see figure 8-2. They draw that imaginary line, and for the most part, that's what I will do for your future assignments. I'll be looking for balance, and I will draw that imaginary line right down your display. You can see, what figure is that? Figure 8-3. We start talking about symmetrically balanced. And you can see how that happens in the photograph and the little sketch on the right hand side of that. Excuse me. Symmetrically balanced. The trim has resorted to formal balance. Such a scheme guarantees the assignment of equal weight to each half of the design, but its effectiveness is limited. Its effectiveness is limited. Alright, so that's symmetrical balance. Asymmetrical balance we talk about on page 130. Look at emphasis. The focal point is the dominant or central point of the display, with everything else playing a secondary or subordinate role. Emphasis can be achieved through a variety of techniques. Techniques. The most common of these are size, repetition, contrast, and unique placement. We're going to look at that stuff. Look at, for example, 8-5. You have an asymmetrical, and the drawing. You have the drawing on the left side. If you were to draw an imaginary line, what would happen to that? We talk about repetition. Here's what I like about repetition. It says right there, second line. The eye quickly focuses on the repetitive element. Does your display capture the eye? The true measurement is the passerby. Do they just glance at it and keep walking? Or do they glance at it and look back at it? You've got to get them to look back at it. And that's what we've got to get with repetition. We talk about contrast, we talk about size, lights and darks. By including a single light object in a generally dark display, or vice versa, an immediate visual force is created. For example, I thought we had one here. There. 8-6. The oversized sun, in contrast to the mannequin, draws the attention to the display. The sun is brighter than everything else in the display. Lights. We're going to get to some lighting here. Very, very important. Unique placement. Here's one I really like. Figure 8-10. Look how they have the mannequin suspended halfway up the ladder. I'm thinking that would draw my attention. Just the fact that the mannequin is not on the ground, is actually suspended halfway up the ladder. That would get my attention. So unique placement, proportion. The principle of proportion involves the comparative relationship in the design elements to each other. Look at 8-11. See how the mannequin is almost, if not bigger, than the actual display window. That's proportion. Would that draw your eye? Seeing a mannequin almost, if not bigger, than the actual display. Or would it turn you off? It might turn you away from that display. Rhythm. When all the elements of design are properly located so that the eye, you notice how everything revolves around the eye travels smoothly from one part to the other, then flow, movement, and rhythm has been achieved. Does your display flow? Does the eye just continually go across it? Talk about repetition, alteration, harmony. And you'll see on page 135, figure 8, 14, 15, and 16, we talk about repetition, we talk about continuous rhythm, and we talk about radiation in 8-16. Take a look at these. These are actually pretty good pictures. They explain what the book is trying to explain. Harmony of design seems to imply that all the elements must be exactly the same. For example, using merchandise that is all red, in shapes that are all the same, and in textures that are similar. It would be very harmonious if you did all that, but would it be interesting? Something you have to think about. Then you have a nice little case over there on page 136, talk about the contemporary visual merchandising and environmental design profile of Williams-Sonoma. Their design philosophy and its overwhelming corporate success suggests that, given the right methodology for displaying merchandise, customers will positively respond by returning over and over. Again, it comes right back to what we talked about the very first week, turning shoppers into buyers. Will your display get the shopper to buy? Will your displays get them to come back over and over and over? Repeat customers, brand loyalty. We've talked about all this in different classes. So, that's a real quick example of chapter 8. This is a very important chapter, not just for this class, but for the real world. All of a sudden, we're starting to actually put stuff together. We're putting a display window together. We're putting something together to get shoppers into buyers. All right, that was chapter 8. Thank you much.